We're asking all the toughest questions so that we can get inside their heads.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Fresh FM's Sunday night for Politically Inclined. I'm your host, DJ DD Benz. Thanks for tuning in once again live on Fresh FM Sunday night. Tonight we have a very special guest in studio. We'll get to that in just a moment. But before we kick off here, just a few announcements to make. Make sure you stick in after the show here, because coming up after the show, we have got Aisha's Word Radiology hosted by Aisha Ali from 8:30 till 9 p.m. coming up right after our show here, Politically Inclined, on Fresh FM Sunday night. Make sure you tune in Monday nights to check out Get Buck Mondays. And also Tuesday night we have Beat Bash Tuesdays. Make sure you tune into. Make sure you check us out on YouTube at Fresh Politics, where we'll be airing our in-studio live shows for your viewing pleasure, so you can see us here in studio behind the mic. And that'll also help you realize that I don't have a face for radio. I'm actually have more of a voice for radio. So make sure you tune into our channel there on YouTube. That's Fresh Politics on YouTube. Check us out in case you missed a show. Make sure you catch up and watch us live there on YouTube. Last week, if you missed our show, we had Joshua of Lake Mead in studios with Press TV. I got to say that was an awesome interview. Big shout out to our first YouTube follower on our channel, Mr. Doug Brinkman. Out of Edmonton there. Big thanks to you for joining us on YouTube. We look forward to sharing all of our crazy and sort of spur of the moment moments with you on YouTube. Hope you enjoy. And of course, a final shout out here to all the folks over at Fresh FM, Kofi, all the DJs at Fresh FM for Friday, Saturday, and even Monday and Tuesday nights. You guys do an awesome job. Keep it up. Keep what you're doing, because you guys are what's helping us keep our family together, helping us grow, and keeping the vision alive. So we look forward to growing, and we hope that our audience grows with us. Now that we've covered all of that off, once again, a special shout out to our non-official corporate sponsor, Tim Hortons, for charging us $6 for coffee before the show. Always a treat. But I'm not going to plug them because they don't help us. They just charge us. Anyway, getting to our guest tonight in studio live, we have our associate producer and the founder and creator of Scandal Crew Media, Mr. Thomas Stone, with us tonight. Thomas, how you doing? Welcome to the studio.
Doing very well. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, you know what? We're happy to have you, Thomas. You've been a big help to our production so far, and we thought that everybody should know what it is you do here for us, as well as a little bit about what you do behind the scenes with your own endeavors with Scandal Crew Media. So tell us a little bit about Scandal Crew Media, how you got that started, and what you're all about.
Well, I've been interested in politics, probably since my late teens. I wasn't heavy into politics at that age, but I became sort of interested. I began experimenting with video production sort of in late high school, and that transitioned into what I am now. I basically am looking to put some documentaries together. I started Scandal Crew Media.
So what are you now?
Well, I'm the associate producer. I am also technically the executive producer of Scandal Crew Media. I take I've gotten tired of the mainstream media destroying good stories and their half biased reporting, essentially. I've gotten tired of seeing stories that they put together based on two facts and just to run a story. And so I wanted to deliver to the Canadian public true, actual information on the stories that they were hearing about every day. And so that's what I seek to do with Scandal Crew Media. It's kind of in the name, Scandal Crew. I like to cover scandalous stories about government mismanagement, so if you take S and Crew, you get Screw Media. So the whole purpose of Scandal Crew is to basically give the finger, in a sense, to the mainstream media, who have no interest in telling
Careful,
actual.
you can't give the finger. It's radio, my friend.
Well, I essentially, I want to basically tell them that I want to call them out on their essential biased reporting, and so I want to deliver factual information to the public that they need to know.
And so, obviously, your involvement with several political organizations and activist groups to try and get yourself, made aware of. Tell us a little bit about some of your involvement in some of the activist groups that you've been with, how you got into those groups, and a little bit about what you've done with those groups.
Well, I was partly involved with Occupy Calgary. I no longer am affiliated with them, but I basically got involved in that because, I could see that they had a good cause. Their direction was somewhat clear. They didn't really have the best person to direct them on that, but everybody makes mistakes. But the thing is, I got tired of the media misrepresenting them, and so I spent most of my days in minus 25 weather recording with my own cameras down there the true story of what was going on, and I have some of that on YouTube, but that's that, and I volunteer sometimes in the community and things like that because I'm tired of seeing a government and a media step on people.
Now, obviously, one of your more acclaimed works with some of your prior endeavors on your personal channel, I know I discovered a video that you posted showing that one of the mainstream media entities actually stated directly to you, you called him out and asked him, are you going to tell the true story? And you caught him right on tape, red-handed, telling you that no, they don't even want to tell the true story. They'll just tell it how they want to.
Exactly. I remember that being I remember it being on the news, actually, of the police had come during the day, I think, at some point, and ransacked the camp there in Olympic Plaza, and I don't know what they were looking for, but I came down there at about 5 o'clock, I think it was. This was in like midwinter, and so I heard that the police had been there and they had rummaged through people's belongings, and apparently they had no true media coverage of that, and the fact that that story was being suppressed, and so they actually showed me, not far away from that area, a garbage bin full of their belongings they had found out. And at some point, a global van showed up on scene. And so after some time, after they had done their main story, one of the occupiers and myself went up to their guy that was holding the camera and said, well, if you want to tell the whole story, there's a whole bunch of belongings over here, and you should get a shot of that. And he says, well, why should I do that? And I said to him, well, you want to get the whole story, don't you? And he says, the whole story is what I say it is, not what essentially, basically what my boss says. And that, to me, spoke volumes about their agenda.
So obviously, following up with our topic from last week, there seems to be a lot of distortion in what the media is representing a story as and what the story really is. And so you obviously found it Scandal Crew to sort of tell the true story. As your involvement in several of the protest groups, tell me a little bit about what you found as far as the attitude you received from the general population as a protester.
Well, first of all, I find the Canadian public, no offense to no one, but I find the Canadian public very docile. I really do. Because, I work with another journalist, and what I've found is that when we've done interviews on the street before, we try to talk to people about political issues, and they just say, well, I don't get involved in politics, or I don't know much about politics, I don't want to talk about politics. And this is very disappointing to me. The Canadian public seems to be very disinterested in politics, and this is disappointing because the reason why our rights are being trampled on right now by our government is exactly that. Nobody's interested in politics, so we've essentially given them a license to do whatever they want. And this is why I started Scandal Crew, to give the Canadian public the same stories that they hear in the mainstream media, but more researched and more information. Truth be told, I release a story maybe one every 1 or 2 weeks. CBC and Global and the other networks, they release about 5 stories every day. That doesn't leave much room for research.
So obviously a very large lack of fact in the way they're reporting a story. Do you believe that there's a lot of animosity towards protesters in the protest side of things? And what do you honestly believe that the media is portraying protesters as they truly are, or is there a lot of mixed messages as far as them portraying only a portion of what people are really about when they create these protest groups and these said illegal protests that seem to be popping up all over the place?
Well, that you nailed on the head. The Canadian media is not interested in telling the story about true protesters. The organizers of these protests actually are very intellectual people who know what they're talking about. Unfortunately, the media works for corporations, and they try to make protesters look like idiots. And honestly, I've been to a lot of protests, and most protesters, you ask them, they know what they're talking about, they know why they're there. They're not there to just look pretty. And honestly, the attitude towards protesting in this country is slowly declining as far as respect for it. The issue of protesting against government agendas is it's becoming much more widespread, definitely, but the problem is the media is not interested in telling the whole story. So basically, most of the public deems protesters to be just sort of vigilantes, troublemakers, whatever you want to name it. And so that's kind of what we're seeing right now. Is the true reason why people are protesting is not being made clearer. They're just being made to look like idiots in the public eye because nobody wants to tell a story.
Now, obviously, I'm obviously a very well-rounded individual myself, as are you, Thomas. What's your first response when somebody comes up to you as somebody in a protest group or in a group that's trying to carry a message across and says, "Well, you guys are all just a bunch of nuisance idiots"? How do you respond to that?
Well, my first question would be, how do you get that opinion? Is that what you heard on TV, or did you actually ask somebody about what they think? Because I would guarantee you that's what they heard on TV. And I would say, you know what? I'd be glad to sit down for coffee with you and tell you why I'm protesting if people are interested.
Excellent. Obviously, I mean, there's a lot of dramatic change happening here in Canada. One of the biggest being that the implementation of a new bill that really wasn't publicized by the Harper government, which basically declares that any protest group can be considered illegal or even go to the extent of labeling them potential terrorists, arrest them without proper protocol, and basically an absolute dump on the Charter of Rights and one's right to freedom of assembly. How do you feel about that?
I feel actually point blank disgusted as a Canadian citizen to live under this government. This is very quickly turning into a dictatorship, and this is not what Canada is about. I've heard that this Bill 78, and honestly, again, it's a point blank violation of the Charter of Rights, and that just shows you that Harper's agenda is to suppress the people and to give all the power to corporations. That's the root of that. As far as even in Quebec, the protesters that were arrested, I feel very sorry for them, and I actually commend them on their efforts. As far as I guess I don't know how else to say that.
I mean, obviously, we're seeing a lot more adverse action from the powers that be against protest groups, and that was very obvious. I mean, during the G20, with many of the individuals protesting against the G20, where security was stepped up to probably its highest level ever, and they actually did declare martial law, which has not happened in well over 100 years in Canada. This was one of those historical events where martial law was declared, and even security guards were given the rights and powers of peace officers to basically have free run, and even go as far as beating the living crap out of protesters who they felt were overstepping their bounds in this situation. And do you really think that this is a way to deal with protest groups who are peacefully trying to portray a message?